there. Good day. Hope everybody's having a great day. Just wanted to talk a little bit about gas mileage and jetting, or tuning the fuel injection system, but especially carburation. These things here, they get, maybe you can get 55 out of them, depending on how you're riding and how it's tuned. Watched a video the other day. I've seen this repeated. People will say, "Oh, it needs a bigger intermediate jet," because it spits when it's cold. What it's going to, if you're jetting it so rich that you're washing the damn rings down pretty much, it's too damn rich. Let your bike warm up a little bit. It helps. If the needle position in your carb is too rich, you're still the same thing. You fatten it up in the mid-range there, and just because you think it runs a little bit better, it might run a little bit better, but chances are it ain't going to be perfect. It's hard to get perfect, but you can get it very close. And I used to have guys who would come in and they'd want you to jet their carb, and it'd be like, wintertime, it's 30 degrees outside. And you tell them, are you riding your bike regularly when it's 30? No, they're not. And so when do you ride it? Like everybody else, summertime. So you tell them, why don't you wait till it's a little bit warmer out to bring your bike in? Because if I jet it for the weather right now, it's going to be too rich when it warms up. It's just the way it is. Fuel injection system, you do have a little more leeway because you got your inlet temperature sensor and engine temperature sensor. So the algorithm's going to figure out about where your system should be running at. And, you can fatten it up here and there or lean it out where you need to. But back to carburation. Okay. I had done a bunch of these Sportsters, the 1200 kits, in the 90s. I came because I didn't like the dish top pistons from Weisco, because that's about the only people that made them, which is 1200 conversion. You just slap the pistons in there and you're done. And you get what you get power-wise. So what I came up with was I would use the Kibblewhite Precision Machine 1200 size valves, which are slightly longer, and you machine the valves down into the heads, and you do resist the seat slightly, which takes away some of the compression, because you can't run an 883 head with a flat top piston. Your compression is going to be entirely too high. So you take it down, and I would put the valves in there, and then take the heads and stick them in the lathe, and cut a 20-degree shelf in there on the lathe out of the heads to relieve some of the compression. And I knew that if I cut a 20-degree shelf, and I'd mark the head where I'm cutting from, so basically from where the head gasket surface is on in, relieve some of the compression there. Then I would take stock cast 1200 piston, and I'd cut maybe like, I don't remember, I got it written down, I want to say like 60 thousandths off dish all the way out to the valve pockets. So a very, very small dish, and it'd take away like, not very much. It'd be like 2 cc's, 3 cc's, whatever it was. It was very, very little bit. But I would do that, and I done a lot of these, done, probably 20 of them. I read everything down. So I actually had heads and cylinders sitting on the shelf, already machined, ready to go. So when a guy wants 1200 kit, we pretty much just swap the cylinders and heads for these other cylinders and heads. So in and out, So anyway, I did a bunch of these, and guy came in for a service or tires or whatever it was, and I'd done this kit on his bike, and it was a commuter bike, and he drove it back and forth from Frederick to Washington D.C. daily. For a commuter bike. And I asked him, I'm like, man, how much gas mileage did you get out of that bike? He just looks at me and says, I'm getting exactly 62 miles to the gallon. No shit. That's incredible. So That's according to him. That's what he's getting. Okay. So I started calling people up that I'd done this kit to, and I just asked them, I was like, do you know what kind of gas mileage you're getting? And they told me in the range of 55 to 65 miles a gallon. And I just thought, man, that's incredible. And I'd never actually done a fuel consumption test on one myself, because my bike actually didn't have those heads on there, and I'm a throttle hog, so that wouldn't really work for me. I've never gotten that kind of gas mileage at any bike I've owned ever, no matter what kind it was. I had a customer maybe 15 years ago, probably a little bit longer than that, maybe 18 years ago, that had a CBR 600 F3, the older F3. And I had been through this bike before. The original owner had got it, and he'd had it at a local dealer in Raleigh or Garner, wherever it is, up that way. That they'd been working on it, and for whatever reason, it wasn't right. And he wanted me to check the valves on it, because he lost all confidence in that dealer up there. And this is on the dealer. So he wanted me to check his valve clearances, because they supposedly did them, but he wasn't sure. Anyway, I know I'm going along here, but got the bike in there, pulled the valve cover off, and I'm getting ready to check the valves, and I'm looking in there with a light, and I see a feeler gauge, just a single little feeler gauge, not attached to anything, just sitting in there in the cam tower, kind of in between. It's just sitting in there. It's just laying like somebody had it in there and forgot it. I was like, oh man, it's a good thing that thing didn't get caught up in the cam or a valve spring or something. That'd have been bad. Or cam chain, because it was on that side where the cam chain is. That'd been a bad day. So checked the valve clearances. A few of them were out. Not many. Just had to pull the cams and swap some shims on it. But put it all back together and sink the carbs in, all that, service stuff. And that was the original guy. And then he sold it to somebody else, and that guy I'd been dealing with ever since I moved to North Carolina, like 2000. And he had Harleys, a bunch of different Harleys, and he'd always buy like a Yamaha or a Honda or something, just other bikes. And he had it for a while, and then serviced it. I think I put tires on it or something, did something to it. And then he sold it to somebody else. Well, the guy that he sold it to came in the shop one time, and he's asking me about service on the bike and the service records and when this was done and when that was done. I pulled the records up, and I'm like, yeah, I knew the original, not original owner, but I knew the owner was before you and Mac. And gave him all the service records and all the stuff that was done. And asked the guy, are you having any problems with it? He's like, no, not having any problems. And for whatever reason, I asked him what kind of gas mileage he's getting out of it. He says 65 miles a gallon. Right away, I don't believe him, because, come on, 65 miles a gallon out of a CBR 600 F3? That sounds incredible. So I know, because I had a F4, and I'd be lucky if I could get 30 out of it. Not because there was anything wrong with it, because there wasn't. Just the way I hammered the throttle on it, just hell on wheels with that stuff. So a couple of weeks later, I think I rode to the store to get a pack of smokes or something, and I saw him down there. It was a weekend. I wasn't doing nothing. I was off Sunday or Saturday afternoon or whatever it was. And he's like, man, you want to go for a little ride down the road? I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So we take off down the road. And he goes first. I'll let him go first. And he's like, shifting at like 3,000 RPM. I was like, oh, okay. No wonder he gets 65 miles to the gallon. So the whole time we're going down the road, he's logging the hell out of this thing. I mean, it's wonder the chain ain't snatching because it's probably never went over 3 grand, 3,500 maybe at the most. And never went over like 55 miles an hour either. You know, I'm just kind of, you know, and you can hear him, he'd switch into the sixth gear at like 45 miles an hour. And hey, I wonder. So we rode a little bit and went on, and I was like, man, no wonder that guy never wears out any tires or brakes or anything else. Just rides his bike like you know, not like a sport bike guy, but just I guess you know, like a sport cruiser kind of thing. But he loved the bike, and I guess point is, ride halfway decent, you can get better gas mileage instead of jackrabbit starts and you know pegging it every shift. That basically shift that comes on. Uh, it's not as much fun, but you definitely save your tires and clutch and brakes and everything else if you ride like that. I don't ride like that ever on anything. I like to feel the motor rev up. I like to run at the red line and shift. Not every time, but I do like to run them. It's better for them, I think. At least keeps carbon off stuff. You know, you can change it around if you wanted to. You could change your gearing a little bit to get a little bit better gas mileage. I know back in the late '90s on the Softail models. Originally on the Softail models, they had run a 72 rear pulley, and they had switched that to a 65 at one point. And on some models, they had switched to a 62 rear pulley. And on those six, you know, you're talking about Evo Softail that bone stock makes maybe 48 horsepower, so not a real powerhouse. So when you went from a 70 down to a 62 tooth, I want to say 62. It could have been a little bit different, but they changed the gearing on them. So even when you go to take off from the stoplight, on some of them, you kind of, if you're riding two up, you might have to feather the clutch a little bit to get it to take off because the gear ratio is just way the hell off. But they did get a little bit better gas mileage, and they sure as hell didn't vibrate as much because you're not pulling as many revs going down the road. So there is that. But you know, there's a lot of bikes that get better gas mileage. You know, I heard somebody saying that, you know, and you have to wonder if these guys are full of shit or what the hell they're doing. I heard a guy saying he had a Softail, and this was later model twin cam injected model, talking about he was lucky if he got 35 miles a gallon. I was like, well, he's either beating the shit out of it or something's wrong with that bike. He didn't elaborate. He just said, "No, I'm just riding it normal," is what he said. So, well, what's normal for him might not be normal for me. So, I don't know about that. I know I hear some bikes saying that they're getting 65, 70 miles per gallon or whatever. And that's cool, man. I know some smaller bikes get that. Smaller, lighter bikes get better gas mileage. You know, maybe, I don't know anymore. I don't really pay attention to that stuff too much. So, tell you only what I hear people say versus what I've actually experienced. I know that Harley used to rate all their bikes for about 52 miles per gallon. And that's actual in print, what they said, 52 miles per gallon. Now, I'm sure you can look online and AI or whatever is going to tell you that it's, you know, nowhere near that. I don't know what they get now. Like I said, I don't pay attention to it. Maybe they do get 27 miles per gallon or something. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, and then I'd have to trust that what they're saying is real versus, what's actually experienced. Anyway, that's about all I got for this thing here. Hope everybody has a good week coming up, and I think we're trying to move here before too long, so pretty much getting rid of everything, keeping this, and getting rid of the Sportster over there, getting rid of the BMW, and probably the Honda outside, the CB900F, and a couple other things I got laying around, so we can get moved, start building a new garage eventually. That's not like right away, but if it gets built, it gets built. I want a hell of a lot nicer, bigger garage than this little shed shack here. But we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, everybody take care. Have a great week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Take care.